Hi, I'm Sasha Moore, and I'm here with Ebony Maxwell, who is the National Sales Manager of National Finance and Loans. Thank you so much for joining me, Ebony. I'm dying to get your take about embracing risk professionally. So I'm going to get your opinion on three questions. So triple barrel
Okay.
question. So when have you taken risk? How has it paid off? And where has it created impact?
Oh, good questions. I would definitely have to say probably the biggest impact since I've been in finance would have to be over the whole COVID period. I think I was on the different sort of sitting on a different side of the fence with being that I was working for a lender at that particular time. And again, COVID was like the unknown for everyone. So again, as a lender's perspective, it was a big risk. Should we be lending to customers that potentially may not have their jobs? What is the current process that we actually have in place? Do we need to kind of alter that at all to ensure that, from a compliance perspective and a risk perspective, that we were potentially making sure that we weren't sort of like putting ourselves out there in harm's way. So I feel that was probably like the biggest risk adverse that I've kind of seen, that it went from one extreme to the other, and it literally wasn't gradual either. It literally just went bang overnight, and there was a complete sort of like change from a lending perspective when COVID hit.
And how did you personally adapt to that in your role?
Look, it was challenging, especially, I guess the biggest challenge for us is the fact that we literally had deals in the system that were ready to go, that settlement was about to potentially happen, and people may have effectively lost their job and weren't going to be able to, repay their home loans. So it definitely was a tricky situation. I'm not going to deny that. But I guess it was potentially understanding I guess the risks and the reasons why we were doing what we were doing. And again, it was a benefit for the customer as well. The last thing that we wanted to do is settle a home loan with someone that's just lost their jobs, and we're going to put them in a hardship position straight off the bat.
No, absolutely. And I think it's interesting when you are catapulted in a situation like no one could have forecast COVID. I know it's been talked to death, but it was an extraordinary time. And what I did very much notice that the upside of that is it has definitely changed how particularly business owners think and how we operate obviously professionally. And I don't just mean the hybrid work from home situation, but just our whole attitude professionally. So how has being in that very tumultuous, high risk, high pressure, high stress, I imagine, situation um, affected your personal perspective in terms of how you conduct yourself professionally or the types of opportunities or lateral thinking that you might consider having been in such an adverse environment?
Yeah. I mean, I guess the big takeaway for us at that particular time, after the dust settled and all of a sudden like COVID kind of went away, well, not that it's gone away, but from the risk lockdown that we were in, um is, did were we too harsh? Did what would we do? I think the biggest learning curve was, if something like that was to happen, would we do the things exactly the same way? Would we go to that extremes, or would we do things a little bit different? And I guess it has sort of provided that extra flexibility, especially like for customers, the way that we're interacting with them. I don't think there was as many Zooms and even AMLing customers, online, and have the different resources available back then as what we do now, which I think has actually made people's lives and brokers' lives a lot easier to kind of manage within their business.
No, indeed. And in terms of the mindset post-COVID versus pre-COVID, and I guess probably particularly I'm speaking to more of the business customers, have you, because I know that you're doing a lot in the asset finance space now, are you seeing any shifts in mindset in terms of looking at business differently, looking at, acquisitions differently, purchases or investments differently?
Yeah, look, not too much of the risk. Like asset is sort of a little bit sort of different to the mortgage, because I think mortgage is more like long term versus the asset, which is more sort of shorter term. Um, but I just think there's more options available to try and make it as easy as it is for the customer to go through a loan application. So whether it's with a broker or a lender, versus what they kind of needed to do pre-COVID. And I think that there's more sort of like, I guess, checks in place to make sure that from a risk perspective, it's kind of protecting both consumer and the lender itself.
Yeah, indeed. Well, one thing that I've definitely noticed, and again, just from like a pure business owner perspective, is I think COVID's done us a massive favor in the sense that it is like taken any blinkers off, and particularly with that volatility and not knowing the state of play, and not knowing not only for a brief period of time but an extended period of time. And then off the back of that, there's interest rate rises and wars and this and that and the other. So I feel like we're, as businesses, business owners have been forced to be really shrewd and very astute. And I think the upside with that is contemplating things differently. And I think embracing that change or that challenge is really the first part of embracing risk, in
Yeah,
terms of doing
absolutely.
things differently and hopefully smarter, more leanly, more efficiently, and so forth. Would you concur?
Absolutely. And touch wood, we've been there, done that, and hopefully, COVID or next wave of COVID or the next thing that pops up. Fingers crossed that doesn't happen. But if it was to potentially happen now or, in the future, I think everyone kind of is going to be like better prepared, and is already in the arsenal as to what they can do, and stuff, because we've kind of already been through it. I think that was the hard thing. It was like the first time that no one, expected it to kind of happen, and to be as locked down for as much as what we were, especially I'm a Melburnian, so we were locked down for quite some time.
No, indeed. Well, I think, challenge also and adversity breeds opportunity, and there are always going to be risk takers when there is challenge. And so I think, so it's a great reminder of where we've been, and now hopefully we're in a more robust state and a more agile state moving forward. So
Yeah,
thank you so much for
absolutely.
your thoughts, Ebony. I really appreciate it.
No worries. Thanks so much for having me.